Coming up on NCC News, we took a look at one of the most famous train stations in the world, then visit a Portuguese family for a new take on Easter, and also discuss the difficult subject of women serving on the front lines. These stories coming up after these messages.
Are you getting
Hello, I'm Stephen Gagliardo.
And I'm Joe DeSpirito. In our top story, there is wide speculation that the Cardinals meeting at the Vatican could elect the first modern-day African Pope.
The conclave gets underway on Tuesday, and Vladimir Duthiers reports Africa is one of the places Catholicism has been expanding in recent years.
Et Spiritus Sanctus.
Pope Benedict XVI's decision to resign on February 28 due to failing health came as a surprise to the more than 1 billion Catholics around the world. The Vatican says it hopes to elect a new pope by Easter, and a question on everyone's mind is, where will he come from? Growth of the Church has slowed in Europe and the United States, but beyond Western shores, Catholicism is expanding, and that has many speculating that the next pontiff may come from South America, Asia, or even Africa, where there are over 185 million Catholics. Two of the Africa's frontrunners are Cardinal Peter Turkson from Ghana and Cardinal Francis Arinze from Nigeria. When John Paul II died in 2005, Arinze was seen as the papal, the ones most likely to succeed the Pope. But Arinze is now 80 years old, 2 years older than Benedict was when he was elected. Turkson, by contrast, is a spy, 64. Benedict XVI traveled to Africa twice, in 2009 and 2011. Before his first visit, he was criticized for upholding the Church's strict doctrine against condom usage, comments that were seen as tone-deaf when it came to addressing some of the problems plaguing Africa, like the AIDS epidemic. He later softened the tone in saying that condoms could be morally accepted in some cases to prevent disease. In Nigeria, home to more than 25 million Catholics and growing, many hope that the new pope will address some of the problems facing Africa's most populous country, problems, they say, that are not uniquely Nigerian.
The Christians and Muslims should come together. Millions have been killed as a result of religion. It touches my mind. I feel for it. I pray the Pope, as the head of the Church, should focus more, especially in Africa.
Father John Paul L. says that there is only one way to end violence between Christians and Muslims.
It's dialogue, and to have peace, realizing that when you kill a brother, you are not killing the religion, but you are killing the human body.
Although many of the parishioners that we've spoken to at this church say that it would be wonderful if the next pope were to come from Africa, members of the clergy say that that decision rests with a higher authority.
We don't make so speculations, we don't go by them. We rest in the arms of the will of God. We submit ourselves to God's will. Arinze, yes, he has worked, he has done so much, he has contributed a whole lot. But we're not going to move because he's an African. We'll allow the will of God to reign in everything.
Still, many are saying that when the Vatican convenes the papal conclave, the white smoke that burns when the church leader is elected may be for a black pope. Elena Rasnak, CNN, Lagos.
The solution to the North Korea crisis may lie with its powerful neighbor and ally, China. CNN's David McKenzie is in Beijing with a closer look at China's leverage with North Korea.
Fiery nuclear rhetoric, armies at the ready, missile defense systems in downtown Tokyo. Who can bring down the temperature?
And there is one power that can end this story very quickly. End this, first of all, human tragedy of North Korea and this incredible farce of a regime. And that country is called China.
China could cut off the fuel taps and food aid to starve the regime. But through years of nuclear tests and missile launches, China's trade with North Korea has increased, not decreased.
China does not want North Korea to collapse. They've made that very clear. They consider it a buffer zone.
The status quo is what China wants, says author and journalist Barbara Demick.
It would be taken over by South Korea, a country highly influenced by the Americans. So you'd effectively have the U.S. Western imperialism at your doorstep.
North Korea has few friends, but China has always been one of them, putting up with their neighbor like a reckless relative. China sent soldiers to fight in the Korean War, welcomed the North's founder Kim Il-sung, and embraced his son Kim Jong-il. China's leaders have long memories, says Victor Gao.
On the Chinese government side, there is a lot of importance attached to maintain what we call the traditional friendship between China and DPRK.
But he says North Korea's young dictator may have gone too far this time. And there hasn't been high-level talks between the two countries since November. So the threat of a nuclear North Korea may ultimately bring the US and China together. David Mackenzie, CNN Beijing.
A daring rescue caught on camera and hitting the jackpot, both literally and figuratively. The video that will have you talking is next, and take a look at this.
Take a look at this. A man scales 3 stories to rescue a little girl trapped inside a burning building in China. Actually, he climbed the outside of the building twice. Once to see if anyone was inside, then again armed with an axe and supplies to free the girl. Once he reached her, the man tied the girl to a rope and lowered her to firefighters below. How great would it be to win $40,000? Now imagine how much better it would be to discover that your winning ticket was actually worth $40 million. You'd probably dance with joy just like this woman in Canada. The lucky mother-daughter duo laughed, cried, and yes, danced at their check acceptance in Toronto this week. Speaking of hitting the jackpot, take a look at this. Philanthropist and cosmetics tycoon Leonard Lauder is donating a collection of prized paintings to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. Forbes estimates the painting treasure trove is valued at $1.1 billion. The works include 33 by Picasso and dozens more by iconic painters from the Cubist movement. Lauder hopes his donation draws more audiences to the museum and more attention to Cubist artists. For Take a Look at This, I'm Elizabeth Corridon.
A group of high school baseball players made a catch they will never forget. That's because the catch was a great white shark. Brandon Byer has the story.
You're looking at a 10 to 13 foot, 1,000-pound great white shark caught off the coast of Fort Lauderdale Tuesday morning by some high school baseball players visiting from Georgia.
I wasn't expecting too much, to be honest.
He got more than he expected. Took the 4 teenagers 2 hours to pull the shark to the boat, each kid taking turns reeling it in.
One more time, we'll switch.
The boys were on board Hooked Up, a charter boat run by Captain Taco out of Fort Lauderdale.
I don't think they really understood the magnitude of what had just happened. They were kind of in shock, and such a big fish, but they didn't really understand how rare that is.
Shark experts say it's rare to see a great white shark in these parts, much less catch one, but not impossible.
They're actually highly migratory, so for them to be passing through the waters here in Florida does happen. It's very occasional, but it actually does happen.
Happened just last month in Jacksonville. Remember this 14-foot great white? 2,000 pounds. She was tagged so researchers could follow her movements. Tuesday's great white never made it into the boat, safer for the animal and the boys to keep him in the water. The 2-hour fight nearly exhausted the young male, but he did put up quite a fight against half a baseball team.
It's a great experience, once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing that, you know, when I go fishing again, I won't be as excited as I was today, that's for sure.
You can see a lot of strange things being a bouncer at a strip club. An air flying at you, however, isn't one you might expect. Yet that's exactly what happened to the doorman of a Tennessee strip club over the weekend. Mona Nair has more.
It was the end of a busy night at the Bowl Gentlemen's Club. Customers had left the building, dancers wrapping up their shift.
My first theory would be probably a disgruntled customer, probably one that was aggravated that maybe, you know, because we'd ask him to leave or something.
Bouncer Brian Bowling, a.k.a. Big B, says he was in the parking lot looking at his phone. Suddenly, out of these woods, an arrow comes flying through.
I hear this swoop like this, and it was boom, right in the back of the shoulder. And then, I felt the pain go all the way down the back of my leg. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I look back like this, and I see the arrow sticking in my shoulder. So I'm like, oh no, my first instinct was I kind of panicked for a minute. And I just grabbed it and I kind of yanked it, and luckily it pulled out pretty easy.
Big B showed us his wound, saying because of his muscle mass, his injury isn't too bad. In fact, he's back at work, saying of all the stories that come with being a bouncer at a strip club, this one is the strangest.
The arrow thing, I think, probably tops it all.
One man's trash is another man's treasure. We traveled to Vulcan Scrapyard to see what we could dig up. Michael Long has the story.
Vulcan Scrap Metal, a junkyard located on Taft Avenue in Stamford, Connecticut, is home to many unique odds and ends. Buried beneath the surface of scrap goods lie many antiques and collectibles. It's true what they say, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Best of all is the price. Regardless of its value on the open market, Vulcan only charges by the weight.
The prices are 10 times better than the Home Depot. I can get this piece of angle iron for a couple bucks at Home Depot. They want $20 for it. It's pretty simple. Plus, it's a nice place to drive around and look at all the different things they have, the different items that people will bring in to scrap. It's a unique place. You got everything here that you want to see. You got 5 acres of junk that you can go through and find something for your house. You got mailboxes. You got a lot of things here that people could fix up and make something in for their home.
I'm Michael Long, reporting for NCC News.
Coming up, a look at equal rights, women in combat, and same-sex marriage.
Stay tuned. The Combat Exclusion Act has been repealed, which now enables women to serve alongside men in combat. We traveled to NCC to hear what students think.
The Pentagon has announced that it has overturned a 1994 ruling that banned women in the military from serving in combat. This decision will allow women to serve alongside men on the front lines. Today I had the opportunity to hear what students at NCC had to say on the matter.
Well, what we really need to consider is the fact that many people are pushing towards equality rights these days. We as a society are, becoming smarter and more developed, and so we need to be more open-minded with these kind of things.
I feel like women serving in the infantry is a major step in equality.
Maybe they should have different standards, like separate them from the men, so it would be a healthier environment than having them mixed together.
Well, I believe that women should be able to go off to fight, but if that's not what they want to do, then that's not what they should have to do.
I feel women should have the same opportunities men have in the service, because who doesn't want to serve their country?
Well, other countries, they've had women in the military serving in combat roles for a while. I know that Denmark's had it since the early 90s, that women can do it on a volunteer basis.
It's a touchy subject for a lot of us because few of my friends agree, few of my friends disagree. But in the end, if you're definitely motivated for it, I believe you should go for it.
So there's a lot of science, that was saying, advocating why they shouldn't. But if women want to, I see no reason why they should not be able to.
I think some women are actually tough enough to fight in the Army, so I think they should have the equal right as men, since women are equal. Some men are built stronger than women, but women should be able to fight and do whatever they want since they're considered equal to us.
Well, I mean, if they want to serve, I'm all for it.
The Pentagon has said that the armed forces have until 2016 to fully implement the policy. I'm Michael Long, NCC News.
Teen pregnancy has been an issue in America for a long time. Benny Harrell asked students what they think about this major problem.
They should use condoms and or just use abstinence. Don't have sex because it's too hard to take care of a child that young. Like, look at that show Teen Mom. They're having so much struggles on that show. So it shouldn't happen anymore. And yeah, just use condoms.
I think that teen pregnancies become a big problem in the United States and probably even all around the world. I think that teens should have a chance to live their life and grow up before they become parents, and that maybe if they learned a little more in school or through their parents about protection, they should, and that I think that they should all use it because teen pregnancies become a big problem.
I think it's all about the manners from families, and I think people should be more worried about these things.
Although teen and youth pregnancy is unfortunate, there are ways of preventing it. And if prevention fails and you do get pregnant, or if you get pregnant nevertheless, there are ways in which you can get help. Here at NCC, we have a child development lab where students can go if they need help with their children. I actually got a chance to speak with a director of the student lab, a Miss Catherine Neiswanger.
It's unfortunate that young people are having pregnancies so early. And I think that any person who wants to get pregnant should plan to be pregnant. They should know that that's what they want to do and know that they have a plan after that baby arrives. I think any young person who is pregnant should take a child development class. The child development class is going to tell you and teach you about what happens during that pregnancy, and it's going to tell you what those first few years of life are like and what's important about the development of that child. Because young people are having babies, they're not always prepared to be able to take care of another person, either financially or emotionally, and they're not educated to do that. So I just think they need more education about what happens after the baby comes. Well, basically the same thing. If you should know if you want to have a baby. If you don't want to have a baby, then don't have sex. That's what makes babies. If you're going to have sex, then know that there are ways to prevent being pregnant and be proactive about that. And that's the only way you can take charge of your life, is by being proactive. If you're always going to be reactive, oh, oops, I'm pregnant, then you're going to live your life by that mistake. And that's a hard way to start things. You want to plan and think about it and do it the way you want to do it.
Teen pregnancy is very unfortunate, and it happens in our society way too often. I'm Benny Harrell reporting, NCC News.
Same-sex marriage is a hot topic in the world today. Elena Rustic asked students at NCC how they feel about the issue.
Same-sex marriage is legally recognized in several jurisdictions within the United States. As of January 2013, 9 states, Connecticut, Iowa, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New York, Vermont, and Washington, as well as the District of Columbia and 3 Native American tribes, have legalized same-sex marriage, representing 15.7% of the U.S. population. When few of the NCC students were asked how they felt about the same-sex marriage, all of them had supported legalizing it and felt that everyone should be with the one they love. One of the NCC students, Diego Ticon, feels that the same-sex marriage should not be made into such a big deal.
I don't think it should be as big of a deal as they're making it.
Samantha Zula says that the same-sex marriage does not affect her and everyone should have a chance at love.
It doesn't really affect me what other people do, and I believe that everyone should have a chance at love, whether it's a man and a man, a man and a woman and a woman. It doesn't, and it doesn't affect me. What does their marriage have to do with me?
Chandira says that he recently attended to his gay's uncle wedding, and it was not any different from any traditional wedding.
He got married. It was pretty traditional, you know. There's rice. They were sitting down, eating food. I didn't see anything different about it.
I'm Elena Rasnak, NCC News.
Course evaluations is a way to give feedback about college courses at the end of each semester. Joe DeSpirito asked students if they really complete these evaluations.
At the end of each semester, NCC students are asked to fill out course evaluations for each class they have completed. Now that course evaluations are online only, do students really complete them?
Yeah, I used to do it back when it was on paperwork, but then now I recently heard that they've been moved onto the internet and you can go to certain sites to actually evaluate your professors, which I hadn't known about.
Some students think there should be some changes to the way these evaluations are completed.
I believe they should go back to the paper evaluations because they're more, even though they're still anonymous and anybody can fill them out, but they were more sufficient in a way for the fact that you can give it to students at the end of the semester, give it to them after the final, and just a quick, easy 1, 2, 3, and just leave it as is, rather than go online and go on the internet, because not many people know about the sites.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean, yes and no. because, some students just go off by personal, like if they get an F, they don't really like the professor. It doesn't mean it's a bad professor, but I think that's a great idea to have one just for Norwell Community College.
Students agree that this is an issue and a fix could benefit the college. For NCC News, I'm Joe DeSpirito.
When we return, we'll introduce you to our director, Unal S,
and show you some of his hobbies. Stay tuned. Unal S is a Turkish immigrant and a communication arts major at NCC. Stephen Gagliardo gives us a closer look at the interesting student.
People get some information, film them.
And when Unal isn't working on TV projects, he is enjoying some of his other hobbies with his younger brother.
My favorite hobby is to snowboard when I have free time, especially during the spring or winter break. My little brother was very interested in snowboarding, so I took him to Kataman with me last year. We spent like the whole entire day.
Unal plans to take the remaining TV production courses and is excited about graduating next fall. This is NCC News, Stephen Gagliardo.
Grand Central Station is in New York City. Will be celebrating its 100th birthday this year. Unal S tells us about the most interesting parts of the train station.
Grand Central Terminal in New York City is the largest train station in the world and also one of the most famous. It officially opened at 12:01 a.m. on February 2nd in 1913 after 10 long years of construction. Grand Central is the destination for commuters and tourists alike every morning. Thousands of people pour into the main concourse as they hurry to start their day. In fact, it is estimated that 750,000 people pass through the concourse every day. Many of the people passing through the station use the famous information booth as a meeting place or a place to quickly check the time as they are running to catch their train. The iconic clock was made in Waterbury, Connecticut, and some sources estimate its value at up to $20 million. The main concourse is lined with ticket booths and tracks. If you are running late, the ticket machines across from tracks 31, 32, and 33 almost never have lines. The station's Lost and Found is also located near the tracks, and according to Metro North, their Lost and Found is among the world's most efficient. They say that you will have a more than 80% chance to finding the stuff you've lost. The best part of Grand Central is the amazing architecture. The station was designed by two architectural firms, Reed and Stem and Warren and Wetmore. The oak leaves and acorns that can be found decorating the station are a symbol of the Vanderbilt family, who financially originally owned the building. Another interesting detail is bare light bulbs everywhere in the terminal. The Vanderbilts wanted to show off the electricity that was used to power the station and the railroad, which was a great advance in the early days of Grand Central. If you aren't running to catch a train, take the time, look up, and you will find the ceiling of Grand Central decorated with constellations from the night sky. The signs of the zodiac are actually depicted backwards because the artist who created the design wanted us to see the stars as we were looking at them from the heavens. Hungry travelers have a great selection of restaurants and cafes to choose from at Grand Central Station. In addition to several fine dining restaurants, the lower level of the train station has a full-service food court. From the central location of Grand Central in Midtown Manhattan, travelers can hop onto the subway or into a cab and go to many other parts of the city. Have fun.
This Easter, a Portuguese family gives us their take on the holiday. Unal S has the story.
America is known as the melting pot. For many families of immigrants, their traditions continue to live on as future generations learn from their parents and grandparents. This Easter, a Portuguese family celebrated with their traditional feast and a good time with 3 generations of family.
So for Easter, also known as Pascua, we always have like roasted pig. The pig comes like all prepared, big, and then we always have goat, also known as cabrito, which is like a stew.
That's for the Portuguese. Every make the goat. I'm gonna put onion, Garlic. What do you call it?
Seasoning.
Yes. Oh, salt, pepper. Pepper, yeah. And black pepper, right?
Nice.
One of the two main courses in the Portuguese Easter feast is a whole roasted pig. Once it's brought to the table, it's carved into small pieces so that everyone can have a piece. According to my host, the head is the best part, and he made sure that he claimed it before anyone else got a chance to grab it. Another important part of the Portuguese meal is potatoes and folhari, which is a large loaf of bread baked with bits of pork inside.
Can't get any more Portuguese than the standard. It's like bread. You gotta have it everywhere.
Right.
Every table has to have a boiled baked potato.
After dinner is finished, another feast of dessert begins. The sweets include lots of the usual cakes, pies, cupcakes, and traditional Portuguese desserts as well, including flan.
For dessert, we move over to a flan. It's like very traditional to try to break it from the mold, because a successful Portuguese flan has lots of sugary syrup. And if you have made a successful flan, you will see that it will come out nicely and that you'll have that sugary, sauce to go with it.
Dessert wouldn't be complete, of course, without the traditional Portuguese espresso. These dark and strong little shots of coffee help everyone wake up after a big meal. Some people enjoy a little something extra added to their coffee as well.
And so after you pour yourself your espresso, you need to have bagaceira brandy. In Portugal, you must always have a little cheiro, which means a touch. Cheiro is smell.
While Rose Creek is an affluent golf course community in Oklahoma, it's hardly the kind of nature preserve you might expect for a wild owl. Allie Mayer shows us how a mother owl has become part of an Oklahoma family.
They call her Mrs. Tiger. And you won't see much of him, but there is a Mr. Tiger too, the baby daddy.
She thought that because of her tiger stripes that Mrs. Tiger was an appropriate name.
This is not the first year the Tiger family of owls has roosted here in a window box in Rose Creek.
She's laid eggs 4 years, but has only set them for 2 years.
The Click family set up a webcam last year. This year they really ramped up their game. 2 HD cameras and a live feed on Ustream.
They'll be like, why is there a camera on the babies?
Mrs. Tiger doesn't like to be disturbed, so the theater room is locked these days. With the webcam, the Clicks can watch from afar. Owl experts and bird rehab specialists are logging on too. 750,000 hits on Ustream.
She's mad, she's mad. Hi.
Wow. To watch the mating patterns and the hatching of wild owls. You just don't see that.
It has been quite the lesson for 7-year-old Alessandra.
Well, they look exactly the same, but there's one named Tiger Lily and one Tigress.
A homeschool second grader who's become an owl expert herself, Mrs. Tiger laid 2 eggs this year. They hatched last weekend. 2 owlets starting off life at the Clicks.
I'm Stephen Gagliardo.
And I'm Joe DeSpirito. Thanks for joining us, and good night. Coming up on the next NCC News, a look inside a homeless man's struggling life. And a young girl was killed by a lion. We'll give you the latest on these stories and more on the next NCC News. Please join us.